Hello everyone. My name is Hyun. I am Data and AI Technical Architect from MTC in Seattle. Today, I will walk you through how to create infrastructures and set up an environment for easy MLOps. Before you create infrastructure and set up the environment, I want you to check one thing, which is your permission. So in order to create services, you need to have contributor role of subscription or a resource group. So if you don't have a proper permission, just make sure you have one before you follow my instructions. So here I already log into Azure portal with my ID. So I have an owner role of this Azure subscription. So I will continue to follow the instruction to create environments. So here, you may have the address to access to this MLOps template. So here you can find a lot of information. And what we will do today from this video is creating workshop in lab environments. So once you come here, Git repo, click on this MLOps workshop materials. And then you will see guidance here. And the most of all, what we will do here is set up an environment. Click this Part0 link, which will take you to this document, Workshop Environment Setup. So this document will guide you how to create Azure Machine Learning Workspace and then associate Azure resources for the labs. And also here, what we want you to do is have a clear understanding the environments. And we ask you to a little bit of knowledge around Python programming and Pandas scikit-learn library, as well as a condas. There are 3 steps that you need to follow in these instructions. So first, we are going to create an Azure resource. And second, you need to make sure you have accounts in a GitHub. And last but not least, we are going to set up development environments. And there are 2 options for this development environment. First, option A is using compute instance in Azure Machine Learning Workspace. The another option B is using your laptop or workshop or your MacBook. So based on your preference or environment you have, you can choose between option A or B. Okay, let's create Azure resources. So first, you will see this blue button called Deploy to Azure. So this button will take you to Azure portal and then load predefined ARM template. So you can just type a few parameters and it will automatically create Azure services for you. So there are basic steps and guidance in this document. But since we are recording, I'll just show you how to follow this instruction. So please right-click on this blue button and please click Open Link in New tab. And this will take you to another browser tab in your browser. So in a couple of seconds, you will see this custom deployment menu. But again, just make sure you have a login. You log into Azure with a proper role. Contributor role for a subscription or a resource group. Especially if you have a resource group level of permission as a contributor, please make sure you choose appropriate Azure resource group. Or if you are an owner or contributor of a subscription, you can create a new resource group for this lab. So since I'm an owner of this subscription, I'll just create a new Azure resource group for this workshop. So I'll name it AZ MLOps 0 and RG as an example. So this will ask you to choose a region. So this region is for the resource group. You can choose any resource region for the resource group. But for this example, I'll just choose East US2. And it's asking a name. So you can use this name for this project. You can just give any names between 4 characters to 8 characters. So for example, what I will do, I'll do a easy MLOps 0. I'm just following the similar rule that I choose here. In the next VM size, you can choose a VM size. Before you choose a VM size, you have to make sure that you have enough quota to create the VMs. Technical speaking, this is not exactly the VM. The service, this ARM template will automatically create compute instance as well as compute cluster for you with this particular size. So I have enough quota for DSV2 series. So I'll choose a DS3. So this template will create a compute instance and compute cluster for me. And last but not least, you need to choose a location. This location has a limited list. Due to the region, there are multiple reasons why we are providing this limited list. For this example, I'll choose East US 2, but feel free to choose another region to create services. So next is a review and create. So this phase, Azure will automatically review your given parameters as well as a template, and then it will just activate this create button. So let's click create. After you click on create, it will take you this deployment progress screen blade. So from here, you will see what kind of resources are being created and successfully created. If you see any failure from this screen, please pause and capture the error message, and please reach out to your CSA or technical architect or instructors of the workshop. So since this is going to take a couple of minutes, around 4 to 5 minutes, I'll just pause here and then I'll come back to you. The resources are successfully created. So let's go to the next step. So we just finished the first step, which is creating resources in your Azure subscription. So next step, what we will do is set up a GitHub account. So if you don't have GitHub account, please open this link from the new tab and then follow the sign in options. In my case, I have already an account and it shows me that my repository. So I am good to go for next step. So from here, after I log on, I can go to this repo again, and I will click this fork. So again, I will open this link from my new tab, and I will click on this fork. So as you can see, once I click this fork button, it will automatically copy all the source code and then documents from Microsoft organization to your personal repo. By doing so, now you are the owner. Now you can update and modify the code for this workshop. Okay, so since we have a repo that ready inside your personal repository, let's go to the next step. So the next step is about choosing your own data science development environment. So like I said earlier, there are two options. First is using compute instance inside Azure Machine Services. And second, option B, is using your own laptop. If you choose to use compute instance inside AML, Azure Machine Services, you can save a lot of your time because compute instance will provide necessary libraries in Azure CLI command for MLOps workshop. But if you choose to option B, which is using your own laptop, you must follow the instructions to install Python libraries in Condas and some of AZ CLI command tool for this workshop. From this video, I'll show you how to follow the option A, which is using compute instance in AML. If you decide to use Azure Machine Learning Compute instance for your data science development code, you can follow this option A. So please right click on the link and then click open link in a new tab. This will take you to the new tab. In case you don't see your workspace, please make sure you are in the right directory or tenants. And here I can see the Azure Machine Learning workspace that I created from the previous step 1. So I click the go to workspace, and this takes me to my Azure Machine Learning studio. So there are many menus, but since we are focusing on choosing and setting up the data science development environment, I'll just go to and jump into Compute Instance. So Compute Instance is already created for us. Again, this resource was created by ARM template. So let's check out instruction. So we found our Compute Instance for development environment. Next, it looks like we need to open a terminal and then download a Git repo. So let's do that. So here, again, I'm back in Azure Machine Learning Studio. And I can see a lot of different applications, but what we need is terminal. So by using this terminal, we can run any command from this command line prompt. What I will do is clone my personal repo, which is forked from the Microsoft organization. So I'll just click on the code and copy this URL, and I'll use this URL to clone from my terminal. So I came back to my terminal inside Azure Machine Studio, and from here in this terminal, I'll just type git clone and then paste the URL that I copied from my personal Git repo. So just make sure that you are using your personal Git repo. Okay, now I have successfully cloned the repo from my personal GitHub account. So let's take a look at the next steps. So we just finished this clone part. Next step, it looks like we need to generate and register some sample data for this workshop. There's a command that we need to follow or execute from our terminal. And it looks like we are going to run this code from this directory called workshop. So what I'll do is just copy from this first three lines. And I came back to this terminal. So make it wide so we can see better. So what I'll do is I'll just paste the text that I copied from the repo and paste it here. And it helps me to change the directory to the workshop under MLOps template. And it try to run the conda environment create command by following this YAML file instruction. So there's predefined library inside this YAML file, and then it will help us to create or install the virtual environment to create sample data set for us. Since this may take a couple of minutes, I'll just pause this video for a second and then we'll come back. So the environment was successfully prepared. So now I'm going to activate this environment. And as you can see, this environment is activated now. So let's go back to these documents. And we can see a Python script that needs to run some data preparation for our labs. As you can see, we need to update this names parameters before you execute it. So this information can be found from Azure Portal. So if you remember that you still open up the Azure Portal ARM template deployment, you can go to the resource group to find the proper information. So for example, I came here the resource group that I created using the ARM template, and I was able to find the Azure Machine Learning workspace here. By clicking this resource, I can see the resource group and subscription ID and also the workspace name. So I copied this resource Azure Machine Learning workspace name and copy this resource group, and I copy this ID, and then I changed these parameters before I run this. So I updated those values. And the next step is I came back to this terminal screen, and I was double check that I've activated virtual environment MLOps workshop local, and I paste the command to run this Python script. As you can see, it asked me to log in by using this device login with the code. So I copy this and right click to open this. Just click on this, and it will open up a new Windows for us. And I'll paste the code that I copied from this output of the terminal, in terminal. And I can enter the code and click next. I'll just continue to use my personal credential and click continue. What we followed is the guided instruction that allow us or help us to log into Azure Machine Learning Service from this Python code. So with the success of the login by using this code and following guided instructions, now I was able to successfully log into Azure Machine Learning Workspace. So it found Azure Machine Learning Workspace. The code will automatically take care of us preparing the data set for us. Again, this may take a couple of minutes, so I'll pause my recording and we'll come back to you once it's done. If you see uploaded 60 files from the terminal windows, then you are good to go for next steps. But if you see an error, for example, missing libraries, then please make sure that you are running the Python code from this MLOps workshop local virtual environment. Okay, let's check out the next steps. So we just run this part. Next step is install AZML CLI v2. Sometime you may see unexpected extension or the old version of the ML CLI. So before we install, let's make sure what kind of extensions are already installed inside your compute instance. So I'll copy this command and come back to this terminal window. I'll paste it here as a plain text. Luckily, I have AZCLI-ML extension v2 already. In case you don't see, or in case you see old version of Azure CLI-ML, please run this command to remove the old version of the ML CLI. Or if you don't see the ML v2, please run this command to install AZML CLI v2 inside a compute instance. Okay, if you have extensions for AZCLI v2, the next step is setting up the AZCLI. So AZCLI will be used in many different ways, especially when you try to deploy or access to Azure Machine Learning Workspace from your command line. This AZCLI played a key role there. But everything needs to be authenticated and authorized before you run the command. So from this part, by setting up this Azure CLI, you will follow the guided instructions to log into your Azure subscription with your account. So in order to do that, let's copy this command and go back to the terminal and paste it as a plain text and run this. So again, it gives us URL and the code. So copy this code first and click on this link, which take you to the portal. And I'll paste this code in here. And by doing so, it will ask me to which identity that I'm going to use this code. So I'll use my personal account. And it asks me to sign into Azure Microsoft CLI, and I will do continue. So by clicking this continue, Azure will automatically issue a token to this command line so that I can log into my Azure by using Azure CLI. So as you can see, I was able to successfully log in into my Azure subscription by using Azure CLI. Since we are going to use this CLI command often, what we need is set up the configuration for Azure Machine Learning deployments. So by running this code, now we can set up a particular Azure subscription in Azure Workspace for our lab environments. So I copied and I changed this subscription name and resource group name, Azure Machine Learning Workspace name, engine region name. So maybe it's not easy for you to find this information, especially if you're new to Azure. So what you can do, if you go back to the terminal window, especially Azure Machine Learning Workspace Studio, you will see your workspace information with Azure subscription name. So by clicking this arrow, which is pointing down, it will give you a pop-up with the information what you need. So what we need is subscription, workspace name, resource group name, and the locations. So please use this copy button and then replace all this information with the given data from this terminal. So I just copied and replaced it. And I will run this command again from the terminal. So I'll cancel this and I'll just paste this as a plain text. So if you run this command successfully, you will see like this followings. So workspace, resource group, location is set it for next AZ-CLI ML v2 executions. Okay, we just finished. We are almost close to the end of environment setting for compute instance inside of Azure Machine Learning Service. So last but not least, we need to create a service principal. Service principal is a proxy users or a system managed identity that can access to your Azure resource or resource group behalf of the users. In order to create a service principal, you must have ownership as well as you have a proper role under Azure Active Directory. Since I'm the owner of Azure and I'm the owner of Azure Active Directory of my test Azure subscriptions, I'm able to run this part. But if you're using enterprise subscription or organizational subscription, Azure subscription, please check your permissions, or you can consult or ask this part with your peer, or feel free to reach out to your CSA or technical architect or workshop instructors if you have any concerns or question regarding service principal. But from this video, I'll show you how to run and create service principal, which we will use for rest of Azure Workshop. So I have all the information that I need, and I replace this bracket, replace SP name, and replace subscription ID. So I came prepared with this information, and I'm going to run the command. So I copied this and replaced all the values, and I came back to this terminal. So again, I will paste this command as a plain text, and as you can see, it asks a clear permission to create a new service principal inside my Azure subscriptions. So this is very important. If you see any errors, if you see any warnings, please let your instructor knows so that we can, or instructors can help you. The most important part is please take a note or copy this password and display name and app ID and then tenant, so you can use this information to define pipeline execution in another parts. All right, Congratulations! If you follow this instruction without an error, now you can move to the next step, which is part 1 for the workshop. But before you go to part 1, I just want to give you important announcement here. So the service principal that you just create as a contributor for the particular resource group, this service principal has ability to create a resource or delete a resource inside this resource group. So please make sure do not share this information with any other person, but just have this information in a safe so you can have access. Again, please do not share this information with any others. Of course, I create the service principal for this record of this video. So I'll delete all this information, including resource group as well as service principal. I want you to do the same thing. After you run workshop, please make sure you delete the service principal. Please delete the service principal after the workshop. Okay, that's all I have for this video, and you're more than welcome to proceed next part 1. Thank you for watching this video.